Welcome back to the Matt Cave. Here we are. I've cleaned up just a little bit, and we're ready to do another episode of A View from Mulberry Street. But we're going to try to lighten things up today. Instead of one of my usually somber monologues about all the things that are wrong in the criminal justice system, we're going to take a break today and we're going to delve into the world of entertainment. And we're going to do it big time with a big time guy. He's one of the survivors, one of the few survivors of the original Godfather cast. He's a guy who grew up on the mean streets of Staten Island. Yeah, I'm talking about Staten Island. There were some pretty mean streets when Gianni Russo was growing up. And we're going to talk about what Gianni Russo has done since he portrayed that rotten, wife-beating traitor, Carlo, in The Godfather. Gianni Russo, welcome to A View from Mulberry Street.
Matty.
Everybody knows about your character in The Godfather, and we've got to spend a little bit of time on that, a little bit of time on the making of The Godfather, a little bit of time on what's going on right now for this 50th anniversary. It's turning out to be a mockery of an extravaganza, and but before we get to that, just tell our
Wait, I want to ask you a question. Why are you saying it's a mockery of an
well,
extravaganza?
you know, there's a lot of good things going on, but mostly everybody is focused on this series called The Offer, and I just couldn't. Not only I couldn't get through it, I couldn't even get through the first episode, and I didn't like the previews, and I didn't like what people were saying about it. So everybody's viewing the making of the Godfather movie through the lens of this Offer documentary. And I know from talking to you privately that you're not too happy with it anyhow. Why don't we start off there?
Well, yeah, please. I mean, that's current. It's everybody's mind. And it's a situation that I've been blessed by being in The Godfather 52 years ago. I mean, we shot it, and then it's out now. It's the 50th anniversary, as you mentioned, this February. And they came out with a film called The Offer. And now I'm a character in it. There's a guy playing me, which I think is hysterical how this evolved rather. And but like you, I'm getting negative feedback from even my grandsons, which fortunately I have 10 of. And I have two daughters, 9 sons, 10 grandsons, 1 granddaughter, and now they're in their teens and they're saying, "Poppy, why are they projecting you that you're a womanizer and you actually hit Talia?" I've been friends with Talia up to this day, and it's Hollywood, taking a liberty and never. I mean, I'm writing my second book now, and I knew when we had to vet the book. They checked out names and people to verify that it's true. Nobody called me, which I think they're going to be very sorry about.
That's kind of amazing that they would do a project like this and portray it to be what they're portraying it to be, and not even to consult with you. Who's, let's face it, Johnny, you're one of the few people left in that cast. And far from retiring, you're going full steam ahead, and you know everything that's going on in the current world, the current business, the current entertainment field. And certainly they would have inured to their own benefit to speak to you. I can't believe that they didn't even, attempt to sit you down and to say, "Hey, here's what we're doing. We want to help."
Well, yeah, but the thing is that, since it's been out, James Patterson, which your audience in the world is very familiar with, a great writer, he wrote a book called The Defense Attorney. It's out now. And on page 70 and 71 in the book, it tells you specifically how I got the part of Carlo. And Al Ruddy had nothing to do with it. This whole show, what I'm hearing about, I won't watch it. This whole show is Al already did everything. He found the
Yeah.
house on Staten Island. He found that he didn't even know where to buy pastries on Staten Island. I had to send him to La Rosa's and Buddha Bakery to get the pastries for the wedding, which happened to be my wedding in the movie. And the orchestra on the bandstand played for my first wedding. Nino Morielli's orchestra. That they're in the movie. They thanked me because everybody was saying how can we get an Italian band? I said I got everything you want. Don't worry about it. That's not the way it's spelled trade.
The project, The Offer, indicates that they're trying to reconstruct the making of The Godfather. So, just off the top of your head, what are some of the things that actually occurred during the making of The Godfather that were misportrayed in the documentary or whatever it is, The Offer?
The most important thing is how I got the part, because my ego at 26, I wanted to become an actor. Everybody said, well, you're a good guy, you should be an actor. I was making so much money with Costello on the street. I did it as a hobby, which I'm still doing. Unfortunately, I've made 46 motion pictures that won 9 Oscars. So I'm in the business, basically. But when they started to make the movie, a lawyer that you know very well, Barry Schlotnick, was hired by Joe Columbo to represent Anti-Italian Defamation League. And Joe Columbo at that time was picketing the FBI building. He had a big rally June 22nd, 1971, not 72, the one after that. We'll get to 71. He had 100,000 Italian Americans protesting how this movie was portraying the Italian American heritage as gangsters and killers. So I know the mentality, as you know, I know a lot of made guys. It's always about money. So I flew in. I was on the West Coast. I went to Joe's headquarters in Brooklyn. I said, Joe. And he said, what are you doing? I said, well, I'm hearing and reading all the stuff that's so negative that you don't want this made and that made. I said, why don't you have a meeting with them? And what you dislike, if they change it, why don't you cooperate with them? Give them the unions, give them the locations. And this next line you're going to appreciate because you know me well enough. I said, and we can make a lot of money. So he said,
I bet Joe Columbo liked that line a lot.
Oh, he did actually, because he wanted to know how. I said, if you give them all the permission, what we're going to do, because now that he accepted me as a partner already, I said, what we're going to do, we're going to ask for the world premiere in every major city the night before. We'll make tons of money. We could get $100 a ticket. Back in 71, it's a lot of money. He says, you think you could do that? I said, yeah. So he looks at Barry Schlotnick, who we just hired, a young lawyer. He said, Barry, what do you think of the idea? He said, let him try it. And the headquarters for the Italian Anti-Defamation League was on Madison Avenue. And Paramount was situated in the Gulf and Western building because Gulf and Western just bought Paramount, Charlie Blue Dawn at the time. So I walked up the block to Columbus Circle. I'm in the lobby. I see Bobby Evans, Stanley Jaffe, all the executives, and the producer, Al Ruddy. And I walked up to them. I said, you guys have a problem. I think I could straighten out. So we got no problem. I said, excuse me. I just left Joe Columbo. They said, you just left who? I said, I just left Joe Columbo, and he wants me to arrange a meeting. He said, you're kidding me. I said, no. He said, will he come here? I said, yeah. He said he wants to come. Will he come 10 o'clock tomorrow morning? He said, come anytime you want. They arranged it. So now I walk back down the street. I said, Joe, we get the meeting tomorrow. He said, great. I said, let me suggest something to you. They've been reading the script. They've been writing the script. So I said, why don't we bring a couple of characters with us? Like Joey DeChico, you call him Joey Butterass. And the guy, his name, you're going to remember from the film, who was collecting for them because he was an ex-wrestler, Luco Brasi. Lenny Montana played him. So we go there with Barry Schlotnick, these two guys, and me, And Joe, we sit in the meeting and they start talking. And they're going to iron it all out. They're ready to shake hands and all. I said, Joe, what about me? So he looked at them. He said, what are you going to do for my friend here? He wants to be in the movie. So Ruddy jumps in. He said, oh, we'll give him a part. I said, excuse me. I said, Joe, could you tell them all to sit down? He didn't even tell them. He raised his hand and they all sat down. So I knew he had control of it. So I said, let me tell you something, Mr. Ruddy. You will go nowhere with this. I brought this guy here, and it seems like you're going to be able to work it out. But I want a major part. I said, who's playing Michael? And this, your audience can be surprised at this. They replied by saying James Caan is playing Michael. I said, okay, who's playing Sonny? They said Carmine Persico. He's in a Broadway play right now called The Man from La Mancha, because Carmine's like 6'2". They thought he should be a big guy. I said, well, who's playing Carlo? They're the three ages I thought I could portray. They said, nobody yet. We didn't get to that part. So I tell Joe, I said, Joe, I want to play that part. So he looks at them. He said, he's playing the part. They all looked at each other. And he said, he's playing Carlo. And they gave me the part. That's how I got the part. I'm not an actor.
Gianni, let me ask you this. Is it true that in your effort to land a part in The Godfather, that you supplied the production team with 3 separate videos of yourself, films, in which you portrayed Michael, Sonny, and Carlo? And did those films have an effect on the direction of the entire film?
Not really, because what I did, there was a thing in the LA Times that they were going to use unknowns. Jewish doctors would be Jewish doctors, and they want the authenticity of it. So that's why I had a TV show in Las Vegas at the time called Welcome to My Lifestyle. I had an hour television show. And as I said, my ego, I wanted to be in this business. So with that camera crew, I shot a scene for Michael, a scene for Sonny, and a scene for Carlo. And I submitted it. But in the movie, you'll see it in the offer, I've been told, once I give them the can, they throw it in the garbage bin. I mean, talk about insult to injury. They didn't even look at it. They threw it in the garbage pail. But we go on and on and on about what the offers are. But the authenticity of what went on was then they lost Long Island. And he said, Johnny, like you pointed out, I knew Staten Island well as a kid. He says, is there any place that's a cult? I said, yeah, my grandfather works up on Longfellow Road. He's a gardener up there and his sanitation guy. I know the house. We take him on Longfellow Road. I'm in a limousine with Gordy Wills, the cinema photographer, Al Ruddy, another production guy, another producer, Gray Fredrickson, and me. I got a great recall. I'm 80 years old, but I remember that 52 years ago. And I'm in the car with them. We go up there, they fall in love with the house. That's where we got the compound. They moved out, they built plastic streets. Gordy Wells went out to the end of the street, looked at it through the lens. They put all those phony plastic walls up, and we created the Corleone compound. That's only one thing that happened. Like I said, with the pastries, the musicians, all of that. But in the offer, none of that's me.
And aside from their misportrayal of you, seems to be, I understand that you have a lawsuit going on about that. Can you speak about that?
I could touch on it. It's really not a lawsuit yet. We're sending, the cease and desist letters to all the production people. And the firm is a major, major firm that they're going to be most recognized. Buchanan, Ingersoll, and Rooney. And what I like about it, Barry Slotnick's son, and Barry was a part of that firm also. He's retired now. But Stu Slotnick is representing me because he's a little annoyed that they cut his father out of it entirely. So I got a little energy even within the law firm wanting this to be successful. But your audience and you'll notify you first. we're going to send the letters and see, as you being an attorney, when you send them the letters, cease, desist, save all your emails, all your phone calls, and da. And let's see how they react.
Yeah, Johnny, aside from misportraying you, you knew Joe Columbo well. I mean,
Oh
you were
my
able
God,
just to
did I
walk
ever?
into his office and speak to him anytime. Not many people could do that. And how would you describe how Joe Columbo was misportrayed in
Oh
this
my God.
offer?
And by a great actor. Ribisi is a phenomenal actor. And I'm shocked that he didn't do his homework because and I know Joe Columbo is very, very eloquent, a good businessman, very successful. Really, he was not a D's and Do's guy. He's a multi-million-dollar real estate business. They portraying him as a Goomba off the boat from Italy. I can't believe it. I mean, why they took this creative liberty to destroy two people that I know, me and this guy. It's crazy, but we're gonna have fun with it. And
When I watched the previews and saw how they portrayed Joe Columbo as like a buffoon,
I know.
I was stunned. It really turned me off because Joe Columbo was a guy who was a businessman first, very, very well spoken, and very well respected. He's not like,
Hello.
some thug on the street who's pushing his way around through life. I mean, this was a guy who had legitimate businesses and really knew how to operate. And the Italian American Civil Rights League was a great tribute to him because I didn't think at that point in time or any time that anyone could ever achieve what he achieved. And he did achieve quite a bit to back down the media and back down the government on all this mafia persecution. But the moment that he got killed at Columbus Circle,
Well, he got
oh, the
shot.
government, yeah,
He
yeah,
was
he
in a
got
coma
shot.
for
He got
5 years.
shot. He lasted for how many years?
5 years
Yeah.
in a coma.
Yeah. And the first thing that the government says, oh, see, this Italian American Civil Rights League is all baloney. They're gangsters. They're
Well, you know what?
killers.
I mean, unfortunately, the way that was handled, we gave them the rights to say it because they were all shot. 17 people were shot that day.
Really? I was there, but I never knew that anyone other than Joe Colombo and the fellow who allegedly shot him were shot that day. I didn't know that.
Well, I'm going to tell you something, an interesting story. A couple of names and fortunately they're deceased, so we'll talk about them. I get a call that morning from Tommy Bilotti, who was my best man at my last wedding. I grew up with him. And he says to me, you going to that rally today? I said, yeah. He said, no, you're not. I said, what are you talking about? He's the old man don't want you to go. Me and the old man Gambino yet we're still alive. I said, Tommy, I'm on the dais. He said, I don't care if Joe Columbo's sitting on your lap. You can't go. And I'm saying to myself, how am I going to get out of this one? The only reason I'm here talking to you today, and you being a lawyer, going to understand everything else I'm about to say. I called Barry Schlotnick. I said, Barry, please give my apologize to Joe. He got me to part, but I must have got food poisoning. The only place I'm sitting is on the toilet today. And thank God I made that call because then I left and I went down to Mulberry Street. It was a beautiful day. We're talking about June 28, 1972. We were still in production making the movie. And he had this rally. And the old man, meaning Gambino, told him, don't do this. Put somebody else up there. Stop. You're bringing too much attention. He forgot he was in a secret organization. Or more,
You know what, Johnny? You knew Joe Colombo very well, and obviously to get that call, you had to know Carlo Gambino.
Oh my
But
God.
when you were a younger man, you actually were involved with Frank Costello.
I was a messenger for Frank for 17 years until he died.
And how did you meet Frank Costello? How does a young kid from Staten Island get to meet Frank Costello?
Well, 1949, August 7th, and which has happened now again, and I want to get involved with it. 1949, August 7th, I was diagnosed with polio. So they put me in Bellevue Hospital here on 30th and First Avenue. I was there for 5 years straight. Unbeknownst to me, I have a show on the road right now. My best-selling book, Hollywood Godfather, for 2.5 years, is now a one-man show. And I'm blessed because Mohegan Sun's got me in all their locations. In fact, your audience, if they want to go on October 8th, I'm at Resorts International on Saturday for Columbus Day weekend. So I took the show out of the road, but I'm in the hospital. And when they let me out, the whole left side of my body was still, gimped. And they just came out with ballpoint pens. And I was working in a bakery, Magnati's Bakery at night, mixing dough, unbeknownst to me, mixing 50-pound bags of flour and building my body up. And my grandfather used to come every morning because the bread had to be on the streets at 4. And he'd take me for walks. I knew what he was doing. He was exercising me like a horse. Every day we'd walk for an hour through the neighborhood. So there's one morning he takes me down to Delancey Street, and Leo Rabinovich is so happy about ballpoint pens. And I knew nothing about pens. I was in a hospital. He said, look, Vito, it holds its own ink. You don't need an inkwell. He said, just give me the pencils for the club and the pairs. Card games. But I was impressed with it. I went back the next day. I said, Mr. Rabinovich, I said, I think I can help your business. Now, I'm a 12-year-old kid, a gimp, right? And he was pacifying me. I said, I got an idea. I could take this pens on the streets, down the Wall Street, the business section. Who's going to come to Delancey Street and find them over here? He said, okay, what's your idea? I said, give me 50 pens. I give nobody nothing. I said, let me rephrase that. Lend me 50 pens. I'll sell them. Come back the next day. Whatever I sell, I pay you for. You replenish them. This went on for months. Then I decided to move uptown. So I go to Canal Street. I take the the N train up. I get off at 59th Street on the Central Park side. I never been uptown. I come out. I see the Sherry Netherlands Hotel. All these people all dressed like they're going to. I thought every day was Sunday up there. Every day everybody was dressed in suits and everything else. I stood in front of that place for about 4 or 5 months selling ballpoint pens. Every time this guy would come down the street, he'd cross from the west side on 59th Street, he'd go into Sherry Netherlands to get a shoe shine. I didn't know what he was doing in there. He'd come out, never took a pen. Give me $5, give me words of advice. But before he left, he always grabbed me and touched my left side of my shoulder. I said, I don't care. Guys, give me a $5 bill. It's like $100 bill. Every day, and never took a pen. This went on for months. Mentioning Carlo Gambino indirectly sent me a birthday present for my 7th birthday, December 12th, a transistor radio. As you remember, down the piers, they always said, look, the crate spilt, and that's how you got a radio. And I got a radio in my hotel room, in my hospital room, because there was no television. And Dolores Barone, his niece, was my floor nurse. So she always gave me the extra Jell-O. So I had a rapport with the Gambino family because I thought he really was my uncle because we always had to call him Uncle Carlo. I thought he was, how they are in the neighborhood. So every morning before I went uptown, I'd go to Ferraris because he used to have his legitimate business in Ferraris before he went to the club on Ravenite, went to 247. And I used to just wave to him and just, show him my respect. I come out the door, right next door, Carlo Rossi's is still there. I mean, to your audience, Ferraris is still there. It's still on Grand since 18-something. And next to it is Carlo Rossi's still there. And they sell religious articles. So I come out and Joe Rossi says, Johnny, come here, look at this. We just got these logorns, to wear around your neck from Sicily. I said, what's the difference? And he showed me. It's got a hunchback on the top with a top hat. And then the lagorn is the legs. I said, what's this about? He's, well, Sicilians like touching cripples for luck. Well, Matty, the blood drained from my head. I just did 5 years in an insane asylum.
Huh.
I couldn't wait to get uptown. I bought a rabbit's foot going down to the train station for 10 cents, a pink one. And I'm waiting. Here comes this guy every day between 10:30 and 11. He comes with this guy. He's walking towards me, comes, gives my words of wisdom, throws me a $5 bill, goes to touch me, and I move. Goes to touch me, and I move. He says, what are you doing? I said, no, it's what you're doing. Now, this is a guy. I don't know who the guy was. I says, you're touching me like I'm some kind of freak. I bought you something. I give him this pink rabbit foot. Well, the guy he was with was Blackie, his bodyguard. He says, you believe this kid? He says, what's your name? I said, Gianni Russo. He says, who's Angelo Russo to you? I said, Angelo Russo is my grandfather's oldest brother. He's my uncle. He said, when did you see him last? So I never saw him. He says, why is that? I said, well, if you know him, you know why. He said, I'm asking you. And he's getting tough now. Now we answer the question. I said, well, they hung my uncle in Sicily in 1948 when they were cleaning up La Cosa Nostra. Unbeknownst to me, I don't know we knew him. So he tells Blackie, take his cigar box. That's where I had the money in the pens. And, you know, my good arm, my right arm. So I ain't giving you my pens. Matty, he took a roll of money out that we've been around wise guys. They always carry 1,000, 2,000 in their pockets. He peels me 3 $100 bills off and buys my pens. They were like maybe $20 worth of pens. He says, you never do this again. I said, okay. I've seen 300. I never saw a $100 bill in my life. He says, you know where the Waldorf is? I said, yeah. I knew where every public bathroom was in New York because I used to go to the bathroom or whatever. So I was living on the streets. He's beat 8 tomorrow morning, 11 o'clock. That's where he went every day. When he left there, he'd walk down Park Avenue to Waldorf and held court at Peacock Alley before he did what he had to go do. I was there at 10 o'clock. I wanted to make sure I didn't miss him. Then he tells me the story how my uncle was instrumental in sending his parents here. And then he told me about Gambino. He's, you know, Mr. Gambino. I said, yeah, he gave me a transistor radio for my birthday. He said, who? Carlo Gambino gave you a radio for your birthday? I said, about 5 years ago when I was my 7th birthday. He says, should I be talking to him or you? I said, you can talk to me. Because, he was just trying to figure out how this happened. But that's how long I knew Carlo Gambino and who he was. And he told me at the age of 17, most people don't notice about him. The age of 17, he was sent to America as a made guy to create the 5 families because Magaddino and them were shaking down the Italian immigrants over here. And they found out about it. And that's how the 5 families came to be. So it's part of mafia history that I was a part of indirectly just by being a messenger.
Now, getting back to showbiz. You know, Johnny, I know you know everything about show business, but I didn't know you know so much about the history that you're revealing here today. Really extraordinary. But getting back to The Godfather, you get the part of Carlo. And, you know, throughout the years, there's been a lot of controversy about, you know, whether you really beat up your wife during the course of that film. I think the actress who played your wife, I forget her name, Talia Shire?
Talia Shire.
Shire. I think once she said that you kind of roughed her up. What's the real story about that?
I never said that.
I talked to Talia. Talia never said I roughed her up. Because, which was funny for your audience, my father used to beat my mother up. Before I went to the hospital, I used to hear my mother crying at night. The last thing I would do is touch a woman. And when we were rehearsing that scene on the West Side up in an apartment, that's supposed to be where we lived. The house was supposed to be on Staten Island, but we did it here in New York. Her mother and father, who their son was Francis Ford Coppola, was there watching their daughter, and I got to do this beating scene. So we do the rehearsal, and she had a short sleeve dress on. I said, Francis, you want me to rough her up? I said, get the stuntman, put pads on it, and put a cardigan sweater over her. Because we were, trying to see how we're going to do this. So that's when I spoke. I took off my belt, and I'm whipping her. And that's what's in the scene. You see me whipping her, chasing her room to room. She's throwing stuff at me. And then when we get into the bathroom door, they cut it there. So you don't know what went on. I never touched her. Never. But in the offer, they had me. There's a scene with her with an ice pack on her eye. And she said, Carlo hit me. I never hit her. I never touched her. Her family, and for years, I mean, at the 25th anniversary, her and I traveled with the film to Australia and everything. We did all kinds of interviews. And in those interviews, she said he was always a gentleman to me. He never hurt me because there was all kinds of rumors that she got hurt. I got hurt, and now they're verifying it. And you being a lawyer, this is an amazing thing that caught my lawyer's attention. In the scene, when I'm getting the beating from James Caan, Al Ruddy tells the actor, give him a beating. He said, we got to teach this punk. He thinks who he is. Punk. They're calling me, I mean, loser. The names they're using for me, my character, after 52 years, I can't believe it. So now in the scene, being a lawyer, you're going to love this. The AD and Francis Ford Coppola says, he's getting hurt. We got to stop it. Ruddy said, no, let it go a couple more minutes. Hurt him. How are you telling an actor to hurt an actor in a real scene? And they chipped my elbow and broke 2 ribs for real. And I thought that was my first fight scene. I said, wow, I ain't doing fight scenes no more. I'm going to make love scenes. Screw this. You get hurt here. And I got hurt. But they verified that.
You know, during the course of that scene, I mean, I've seen a lot of things growing up on the Lower East Side, Mulberry Street, and
you and I saw those things a lot.
and Knickerbocker Village. I mean, stuff like that would happen every day. You know, and when people would fight down there, they weren't going to just slap you in the mouth. I mean, things, went all the way. And that beating in the Godfather movie, administered by James Caan, against you, your character, it looks so real. I mean, but did James Caan do that? Did he really hit you on purpose? From him to you?
I'm gonna name a couple of names now that you really know. I'm at a bar called Jilly's on 52nd Street on the West Side. We're into filming 3 or 4 weeks. So Saturday night, I'm up there with Boozy DeChico, Frankie Boy DeChico's father, and he was a made guy with the Gambinos, and Tommy Bilotti, who was like my best friend. We're out drinking. We're celebrating me. And from the back room where the piano was, if anybody remembers Jilly way back when, where the piano room was, and that's where they served food, Jimmy Caan comes from back there. He said, Johnny, I heard you were in the room. I said, yeah. He said, I'm back there with Junior, meaning Junior Persico, other known as the Snake. And he took over the Columbo family. So I knew Junior all my life. He said, come back there. He's with his daughter. He'd like you to meet her. So I go back. I said, I'll be right back. And thank God Tommy and Boozy heard it. So I go back there. We hug, we kiss. And, Junior had a problem with his hand too. And we had a lot in common, Junior and I. So we hug, we kiss. And I look over his shoulder and I said, Junior, your daughter is gorgeous. Well, Junior, I know Junior. You can tell when he's mad. His face twisted. He said, what'd you say? I said, your daughter's gorgeous. He said, ain't my daughter. Jimmy set me up. It was his girlfriend. And you don't play that game with these guys. So I'm going down to the men's room before I go back to the bar. And I'm at the urinal. Here comes 2 of Junior's guys. One stands against the door. And I said, oh, no, here we go. Thank God Tommy caught the move. He come down the steps. He kicks the door, and that guy, we all know the reputation of Tommy Bilotti. And for your audience that don't know who he was assassinated by John Gotti with Paul Castellano that day in front of Sparks. They were killed. He became the underboss to the Gambino family with Paul Castellano. That's how long I'm in bed ingrained with the Bilottis. Matty Bilotti's older brother was my father's friend. I mean, so Tommy had a temper and strength. He wrecked these 2 guys in 2 seconds. By that time, Boozy's hearing the noise. He comes down. He says, what's going on? He sees these guys laid out. Now the protocol. Nobody, we can't talk to Junior. Junior's a bad guy. But Boozy can. So he went up. He's wait down there a couple of minutes, then come up. He just goes up and he gets Junior. Go in the kitchen, Junior. We want to talk to you. Goes in there. Junior calls for Jimmy Caan. Jimmy Caan walks in. And now they call me in. And he apologized to me, Junior. I mean, yeah. And he says, Johnny, I'm sorry. This guy, I heard, set you up because I know you're a nice guy. I said, you know that, John.
Okay, so I guess that's a wrap on A View from Mulberry Street for today. Anyone who's a guest on this show is invited because we respect them. And you have to remember that you can't get respect unless you give respect. And you can't give respect unless you know what respect is. And part of having respect for our guests on this podcast will be to allow them to express their viewpoint, which may not be our viewpoint. And Gianni Russo has a certain way of speaking, like he'll call certain people a made guy. Matthew Mary doesn't call the same person a made guy. Matthew Mary might say that person is accused of being involved in organized crime by the government. And so I have my way of speaking, and he has his. And each of us has a different point of view.